So welcome back to part 5, and this is where we start the rebuild of the top end of this old Matchless here. And you probably noticed that I've got the pistons on. They're all in place. Piston rings are in. Piston ring circlips, as you'll notice, the gaps are at the top. And as my old dad used to say, they look like a horseshoe. And what to do is make sure the gaps are at the top, because you never know when your luck might run out. So worthwhile tip. The other thing is we've got the base gaskets on, and there are 4 oilways in here. And make sure that these oilways are completely open and that the gaskets aren't covering it in any way, because you'll get all sorts of lubrication problems at the top end. And the other thing as well is that we've honed these cylinders, probably not so much honed, but certainly we've roughed them up a bit. We put a crosshatch in them, and that will allow the piston rings to bed in and form their own seal. So I'll come back to you later once we're a little bit further ahead with the rebuild. Well, that's the cylinders on. Everything seems to be good, and I can actually hear the rubbing of the cross-hatching against the piston rings, which is really good. That suggests to me that we're going to get a very good seal when this engine runs in. But that's running really nice and smooth. So we're now at the stage where we can refit our cylinder heads. But before we do that, what we need to do is we need to install the rocker assemblies. But I would also strongly recommend, before doing that, is to make absolutely certain that these 4 oilways here are completely clear. And these oilways are drillings through the cylinder head, which comes out at the rocker journals here. And I can assure you, if these holes are blocked, which 3 of them were on these 2 cylinder heads, it causes all sorts of problems trying to keep the rockers quiet. You would honestly think that the rockers weren't adjusted properly, and it really is. It makes quite a rattle when these aren't cleaned. So make sure that they're cleaned out. The best way to do that is with a bit of welding wire, maybe a little bit thicker than that, and also compressed air with some solvent, and that'll make sure that they're clear. The other thing to make sure that's clean as well are these rocker shafts. Now, as you can see here, there is a drilling which I think runs down at 45 degrees to the other side there, and you can just see the wire coming through. And one of these was blocked as well. And when these block, you would almost think that this was a blind hole, that there's nothing in there. And the only way really to get these clear is to get a drill into the drill press, a suitable drill of that size, and get this clamped, and then just drill them out. And you just make sure that these are completely clean as well, because again, you will have exactly the same problems of trying to keep things quiet at the top end if these aren't clear. So very important that we do that. So I'm going to get all this assembled now, and I'll see you when I've got the cylinder heads on. Now, as you can see, we've got our cylinder heads in place. But what I've also done is I've attached the inlet manifold as well. Now, a real top tip here is get the cylinder heads on, lightly tighten them down, and then what to do is to get the manifold on and then tighten up the 4 nuts. And the reason for that is that these 2 cylinder heads share the same manifold. So what you want to make sure is that the mating faces between the cylinder heads and the manifold are really good and tight, because if not, you'll draw air in and you'll just never get the carburetor set. So that's very important to do that. So the next stage now is to tighten down the cylinder head nuts, gap the rockers, rocker covers on, carburetor on, exhaust on, tank on and seat on, and then you can have a right good laugh when I come to start her up. So now we have everything back together, and there's nothing else for it now but to give it a go and see if it'll run, just to see whether actually all of our hard work is going to come good, or it's going to seize up with an anguish yelp, or it's just going to sort of clatter to a stop. We'll soon find out, but I can promise you I have not started this bike since I put it all back together. So you may have a bit of fun with this, but anyway, let's see how it goes. So this is now the moment of truth. We have fuel in the petrol tank, we have oil in the oil tank,
HT leads all in place, everything looks good. Let's see if we can get it going now, eh? Okay, so fuel is on. Just give her a little tickle. Just bring back the ignition retarded a little bit, and I think we'll go on full choke. Just a little bit of throttle in there. More. Oh, she fired. That's good. Well, I can assure you that is very satisfying. Nothing gives me great pleasure than rebuilding an engine and getting it started for the first time. And that didn't take too much to get it going either, which was amazing. Bit oily at the start up, but then again, that was all the rebuild oil that was in there, and seems to have cleared out quite nicely now. So I'm just going to let it cool down a little bit, and then we'll start her up again and just start very slowly the running in process, just to get it really reliable. But that's fantastic. I'm delighted.